Zara Chen pressed her palm against the cold metal wall of the transport shuttle, watching Earth grow larger through the viewport. The blue marble looked peaceful from space, nothing like the war-torn colony world of Kepler 442b she had called home for 16 years. Her reflection stared back at her, a thin girl with short black hair and scars that traced intricate patterns across her left cheek and neck. Battle scars, survival scars. "Nervous?" asked Captain Morrison, settling into the seat beside her. The grizzled veteran had been her guardian since the evacuation, one of the few adults who understood what she had been through. "No," Zara replied, her voice steady. "Just thinking." She wasn't lying. Fear was something different now. Something she had left behind in the trenches of New Shanghai when the Vorthon Empire's forces had finally broken through the colony's defenses. What she felt now was anticipation mixed with confusion. Earth meant safety, but it also meant normal teenage life, something she had never experienced. The shuttle touched down at the Denver spaceport with barely a tremor. Zara gathered her single bag, containing everything she owned in the universe. 3 changes of clothes, a tactical knife hidden in a false bottom, and a small metal disc containing the last transmission from her parents before their transport had been destroyed by Vorthon fighters. Walking through the spaceport, Zara noticed how soft everything looked. The people moved without checking corners, without scanning for escape routes. Children laughed without looking over their shoulders. It was alien to her, this peace that Earth humans took for granted. Captain Morrison led her to a waiting hover car where a middle-aged couple stood waiting. The Hendersons, her new foster family, smiled nervously as she approached. They had volunteered through the Colonial Refugee Program, offering to take in war orphans. Zara wondered if they knew what they were getting themselves into. "You must be Zara," Mrs. Henderson said warmly, reaching out as if to hug her, then hesitating when she noticed how Zara instinctively stepped back, her posture shifting into a defensive stance. "Thank you for taking me in," Zara said formally, offering a slight bow instead. It was how colonists greeted each other, a habit from the early days when handshakes could be deadly if you misjudged someone's intentions. The drive to their home in the suburbs was quiet. Zara watched the streets filled with intact buildings, untouched by orbital bombardments or plasma fire. No blast craters, no makeshift barriers, no guard towers, just neat houses with perfect lawns and children playing in yards without a care in the world. The Henderson house was larger than the underground bunkers she had lived in for the past 3 years. Her room had an actual window that looked out onto a garden instead of reinforced concrete walls. A bed with soft sheets instead of a sleeping bag on bare ground. A closet full of clothes in her size, all in bright colors she had almost forgotten existed. "We hope you'll be comfortable," Mr. Henderson said, hovering in the doorway. "School starts Monday, Westfield High. We've enrolled you in the junior class since you're 16. Zara nodded, though the concept of sitting in classrooms seemed surreal. Her education for the past 3 years had consisted of learning which plants were safe to eat, how to treat plasma burns, and 37 different ways to kill someone with improvised weapons. That evening, the Hendersons tried to make conversation over dinner. They asked about her favorite foods, her hobbies, what subjects she liked in school. Zara answered as best she could. But how do you explain that your favorite food is anything that isn't ration paste? Your hobby is staying alive, and the only subjects you studied were military tactics and field medicine. "Were you in the fighting?" Mr. Henderson asked gently. "I mean, we read your file, but—" "Yes," Zara said simply. She didn't elaborate. How could she tell them about the night raids, the 3 months she had spent alone in the ruins of New Shanghai after losing her unit, or the way she had learned to move like a ghost through enemy territory? Later, lying in her new bed, Zara stared at the ceiling and listened to the alien sounds of suburban peace. No distant artillery, no patrol drones humming overhead, no whispered conversations from sentries on watch. Just the soft hum of climate control and the occasional passing car. She pulled out her tactical knife and placed it under her pillow, a habit that would be hard to break. Tomorrow she would face a new battlefield, one where the weapons were words instead of plasma rifles, where the enemies wore smiles instead of armor. Monday morning arrived with sunshine streaming through her window. Zara dressed in the clothes the Hendersons had bought her, standard Earth teenage attire that felt strange after years of military fatigues and scavenged clothing. The fabric was too clean, too bright, too soft. Westfield High School looked like something from the old movies her parents used to show her. Sprawling brick buildings, perfectly maintained grounds, students walking in groups and laughing. No checkpoints, no security scanners, no armed guards. It felt exposed, vulnerable. Mrs. Henderson walked her to the main office, where a cheerful secretary handed her a class schedule and a map of the school. "You'll love it here," the woman said brightly. "All our students do." Zara doubted that, but she nodded politely. Her first class was American history, taught by Mr. Williams, a portly man with kind eyes who introduced her to the class as a special transfer student from the colonies. "Zara has come to us from Kepler 442b, he announced, as if that explained everything. "I'm sure she has some fascinating stories about life in space." 25 faces turned to stare at her, and Zara felt her muscles tense automatically. She scanned the room quickly, noting exits, potential weapons, students who might pose threats. Old habits. "Hi," she said simply, then took the empty seat in the back corner where she could watch the entire room. The whispers started immediately. She caught fragments as students leaned toward each other, thinking they were being subtle. "Heard her whole family died. Look at those scars. Probably has PTSD or something. Weird how she sits." During lunch, Zara found herself alone at a table near the wall, methodically eating food that tasted too rich after years of survival rations. She watched the social dynamics of the cafeteria with the same analytical eye she had once used to study enemy troop movements. The school had clear hierarchies. The popular students held court at the center tables, radiating confidence and casual cruelty. The athletes clustered near the windows, loud and territorial. The academic overachievers huddled together, intense and competitive. And scattered throughout were the outcasts, the misfits, the ones who didn't fit into any clear category. "You're the space girl, right?" Zara looked up to find 3 girls standing by her table. The leader was a blonde with perfect makeup and an expression of calculated meanness. Her followers flanked her like lieutenant and sergeant, ready to follow orders. "My name is Zara," she replied evenly. "Right, Zara. I'm Madison Pierce. My dad's on the school board, and my mom runs the PTA. Just thought I should welcome you personally." The smile didn't reach her eyes. "That's quite the war wound you've got there." Madison's finger traced the air near Zara's scarred cheek, and Zara's hand moved automatically to her hip, where her knife should have been. Finding nothing, she forced her hand to relax. "Thank you for the welcome," Zara said, recognizing a territorial challenge when she saw one. "You know," Madison continued, settling into the chair across from her uninvited, "we heard about what happened out there, the war and everything. Must have been terrible, losing everyone like that." The false sympathy in her voice was worse than open hostility would have been. At least with enemies, you knew where you stood. "It was what it was," Zara replied. "Still, I can't imagine what it must be like coming here after all that violence. This must seem so normal to you, boring even." Madison's smile grew sharper. "I hope you'll be able to adjust to civilized society. Some people just can't handle the transition, you know?" One of her followers giggled at this, and Zara understood the subtext perfectly. This was a warning. Stay in your place, stay quiet, don't make waves. I'm sure I'll manage, Zara said calmly. Of course you will, Madison agreed, standing. See you around, Space Girl. As they walked away, Zara heard one of the followers ask, Think she's dangerous? Please, Madison scoffed. Look at her. She's just some traumatized refugee trying to fit in. What's she going to do? Zara almost smiled at that. Madison Pierce had no idea who she was dealing with, but she would learn. In the colonies, they had a saying, still waters run deep, and the quiet ones are the most dangerous. The rest of the day passed in a blur of classes, where teachers spoke about things that seemed impossibly trivial compared to life and death. Literature analysis instead of threat assessment. Algebra instead of artillery calculations. Chemistry instead of explosive compounds. When the final bell rang, Zara gathered her things and headed for the exit, planning to walk home. She had memorized the route that morning, noting alternate paths and potential shortcuts. Hey, wait up! She turned to see a boy jogging toward her. He was tall and lean, with unruly brown hair and genuinely friendly eyes. Unlike Madison's calculated approach, his smile seemed real. I'm Jake, he said, slightly out of breath. Jake Morrison. I was in your history class. The name clicked. Are you related to Captain Morrison? He's my uncle. He asked me to keep an eye out for you, make sure you're settling in okay. Jake fell into step beside her as they walked toward the parking lot. How was your first day? Educational, Zara replied, which was true in ways he probably didn't understand. Yeah, Westfield can be a bit of an adjustment, especially coming from where you've been. His voice grew more serious. Uncle Dan told me some of what happened out there, not details, but enough to know it was rough. Zara appreciated that he didn't push for war stories or trauma details like some of the other students had tried to do throughout the day. Madison Pierce introduce herself yet? Jake asked with a knowing look. We met. Figured. She makes it her business to establish pecking order with anyone new, especially anyone who might be different or interesting. He paused by a beat-up hover bike. Want a ride home? I know where you're staying. Zara hesitated. Trust was something she had learned to ration carefully, but Jake was Captain Morrison's nephew, and the captain had never steered her wrong. Okay, she said. The ride through suburban Denver gave her a chance to study the area from a tactical perspective. Wide streets with good visibility, multiple escape routes, residential areas with low population density. If she ever needed to disappear, it would be easy enough. So what's your assessment? Jake asked as they pulled into the Hendersons' driveway. Assessment? Of Westfield High. Uncle Dan said you've got a military mind. You've probably already categorized every student and teacher, mapped the building layout, and identified potential threats and allies. Zara looked at him more carefully. Jake Morrison wasn't just another suburban teenager. He understood strategy, observation, analysis. His uncle had trained him well. Madison Pierce is a problem that will escalate, she said finally. The administration is civilian soft, more concerned with image than security. Most of the students are sheep, but there are a few wolves hiding in the flock. And me? Jury's still out. Jake laughed. Fair enough. See you tomorrow, Zara Chen. As she watched him drive away, Zara realized that her first day at Westfield High had taught her valuable lessons about this new battlefield. The enemies here used different weapons, fought different wars, but the principles remained the same: survival, adaptation, and victory. She had conquered alien worlds and faced down enemy armies. High school bullies would not break her. But as she walked into the Henderson house, Zara couldn't shake the feeling that this war might be more challenging than any she had fought before. At least in space, you knew who your enemies were. 2 weeks into her time at Westfield High, Zara had established routines that helped her navigate this strange new world. She arrived early to scout the hallways when they were empty, ate lunch alone while observing social patterns, and left immediately after classes ended. The Hendersons worried that she wasn't making friends, but Zara preferred intelligence gathering to socializing. Madison Pierce's campaign against her had been subtle but persistent. Whispered rumors about the crazy space girl circulated through the hallways. Her locker had been vandalized twice with crude drawings of explosions and the word psycho spray-painted across it. In gym class, Madison's friends made sure Zara was always picked last for teams, then accidentally collided with her during activities. The teachers noticed nothing. The Hendersons saw only a quiet teenager adjusting to normal life, but Jake Morrison saw everything. "She's escalating," he observed one afternoon as they walked to the parking lot. A group of Madison's followers had just finished loudly discussing how dangerous refugee students might be, making sure Zara could hear every word. "I've noticed," Zara replied calmly. "So what's your plan?" Zara stopped walking and studied him. "You assume I have a plan?" "You always have a plan. Uncle Dan says you're the most strategically minded person he's ever met, and he's worked with generals." Jake leaned against his hover bike. "So what's the endgame here?" "I'm still gathering intelligence," Zara said, which was true. She had been studying Madison Pierce the way she once studied enemy commanders, learning patterns, weaknesses, pressure points. Madison was popular, but not well-liked. Her authority came from fear and social positioning, rather than genuine respect. She had a small core of true allies, but many fair-weather friends who would abandon her the moment she showed weakness. Her father's position on the school board made her feel untouchable, but it also created expectations she struggled to meet. Most importantly, Madison was used to fighting civilian teenagers who broke down under social pressure. She had no experience dealing with someone who had faced actual combat. "Just remember," Jake said as they reached his bike, "this isn't the colonies. The rules are different here." "Rules are always different," Zara replied. "But human nature remains consistent across all environments." That evening, while pretending to do homework, Zara accessed the school's network through her tablet. Earth security was laughably weak compared to military systems. Within minutes, she had student records, class schedules, disciplinary reports, and social media accounts. Madison Pierce's digital footprint revealed interesting patterns. Her seemingly perfect life had cracks. Her parents' marriage was troubled, hidden behind careful social media curation. Her grades were declining despite expensive tutoring. Her college applications had been rejected by 3 top-tier schools. More importantly, Madison had a history. 5 previous Space Girl situations where new students had transferred out after sustained harassment. The administration had managed to cover it up each time, but the pattern was clear. Zara was not the first target, but she would be the last. The next day brought physics class, where Mr. Peterson assigned lab partners for a month-long project on momentum and energy transfer. Zara found herself paired with David Kim, a quiet senior who kept to himself and rarely spoke in class. "Great," Madison announced loudly from across the room. "The psycho and the mute. This should be entertaining." Mr. Peterson either didn't hear or chose to ignore the comment. David's face reddened with embarrassment, but he said nothing. Zara noticed how his shoulders tensed, how his hands clenched into fists before he forced them to relax. During lunch, she found David sitting alone in the library working on advanced calculus that was well beyond his grade level. "You're gifted," Zara observed, settling into the chair across from him. David looked up, startled. "What?" "Your mathematics. You're working several levels above standard curriculum." She nodded toward his notebook. "Self-taught?" "Mostly." David's voice was barely above a whisper. "I like numbers." They make sense. Unlike people? Yeah. He seemed surprised by her understanding. People are complicated. Numbers are pure. Zara studied him more carefully. David Kim was small for his age, with careful eyes that missed nothing. His clothes were worn but clean, his backpack held together with electrical tape. But his math was elegant, his problem-solving approach sophisticated. "How long has Madison been targeting you?" she asked directly. David's pen froze over his paper. "I don't know what you mean." "Yes, you do." Zara kept her voice gentle but firm. "She called you the Mute. That suggests a pattern of harassment." For a long moment, David said nothing. Then quietly, 3 years, since freshman year when I wouldn't do her homework for her." "And the administration? They say I need to stand up for myself, that it's part of growing up." His voice carried bitter resignation. "My parents think I'm exaggerating. Madison's family donates a lot of money to school programs." Zara nodded. She had suspected as much. Madison Pierce had been allowed to operate unchecked for years, protected by social status and parental influence, while her victims suffered in silence. "Would you like that to change?" she asked. David looked at her with a mixture of hope and suspicion. "You can't fight her. She'll destroy you. She destroys everyone who crosses her." "Has she ever faced anyone who fought back?" "A few tried. They all transferred schools eventually." "I'm not transferring anywhere," Zara said simply, "and I have experience with bullies more dangerous than Madison Pierce." Over the following days, Zara began implementing her strategy. It started small. When Madison's friends tried to trip her in the hallway, Zara's reflexes allowed her to avoid them effortlessly while making it look accidental. When they attempted to surround her in the cafeteria, she positioned herself so that escape routes remained open and they couldn't complete their intimidation formation. Madison noticed these failures and escalated in response. "I heard your parents got blown up by aliens," she said loudly during English class while Mrs. Rodriguez was writing on the board. "Must have been gross, like pieces everywhere." Several students gasped at the cruelty of the comment. Mrs. Rodriguez spun around. "Madison Pierce, that is completely inappropriate." "What?" "I was just expressing sympathy for her loss." Madison's innocent expression was perfectly crafted. "We should all be more understanding of what trauma survivors go through." "Office. Now." Mrs. Rodriguez was clearly furious, but Madison just smiled. "Of course, Mrs. Rodriguez. I apologize if my concern for a fellow student's well-being came across wrong." As Madison gathered her things, she leaned close to Zara's desk. "You can't hide behind teachers forever, Space Girl. Eventually, you'll have to face reality." Zara watched her leave, noting how Madison walked with the confidence of someone who had never faced real consequences. That would need to change. That afternoon, Jake found her in the computer lab during her free period. "Madison got suspended for 3 days, he reported, "but her dad's already making calls to the school board." "Expected," Zara replied without looking up from her screen. "What are you working on?" "Research project." Zara minimized her windows before Jake could see the detailed files she had compiled on Madison and her social network. "Tell me about the spring dance." Jake looked surprised by the change of subject. "What about it? When is it? Who attends? What's the social significance?" "It's in 2 weeks. Pretty much the whole school goes. It's like a status thing, you know? Who you go with, what you wear, all that drama." He studied her carefully. "Why?" "Gathering intelligence." "Zara, whatever you're planning." "I'm not planning anything violent," she assured him. "This isn't the colonies, but there are other ways to win a war." When Madison returned from suspension, she was furious and reckless. The administrative slap on the wrist had only convinced her that she was untouchable, while the public embarrassment demanded retaliation. She started with social media, posting carefully crafted messages about supporting our brave refugees, while using photos that made Zara's scars prominently visible. The fake sympathy was obvious to anyone paying attention, but it provided plausible deniability. Then came the accidental encounters. Madison and her friends would bump into Zara in crowded hallways, spill drinks near her lunch table, block her access to her locker between classes, always with apologetic smiles and explanations about how clumsy they were being. But Madison made a crucial error. She assumed Zara was like her previous victims, isolated and friendless. She didn't realize that her campaign of harassment was being observed by others who had suffered under her reign. David Kim began sitting with Zara at lunch, quietly working on math problems while she studied social dynamics. Sarah Martinez, a freshman who had been Madison's target the previous year, started nodding acknowledgement when they passed in the halls. Marcus Thompson, a junior who had transferred from another school to escape Madison's attention, began sharing information about her tactics. Word spread through the informal network of Madison's victims and targets. The space girl wasn't backing down. Someone was finally standing up to their tormentor. Madison sensed the shift in dynamics and decided to force a confrontation. It happened on a Friday afternoon in the main hallway, when most of the school was heading to the parking lot. Madison and 6 of her closest allies formed a semicircle around Zara's locker, blocking her exit. "We need to talk," Madison announced loudly enough for gathering students to hear. Zara calmly finished organizing her backpack and closed her locker. "About what?" "About your attitude problem. See, you've been here for weeks now, and you still act like you're better than everyone else. Walking around with your scars like some kind of badge of honor, making everyone uncomfortable." "I'm not responsible for your comfort," Zara replied evenly. "Actually, you kind of are. This is our school, our community. You're a guest here, and guests should be grateful for hospitality." Madison stepped closer, using her height advantage to loom over Zara. "But instead, you strut around like some kind of war hero, looking down on those of us who had normal childhoods." A crowd was gathering now, phones appearing to record what looked like developing drama. This was exactly what Madison wanted, a public humiliation that would cement Zara's outcast status. "I've never claimed to be a hero," Zara said calmly, "and I've never looked down on anyone for having peaceful lives." "Right. So why won't you just admit that you're damaged goods, that you don't belong here with normal people?" Madison's voice rose. "Everyone knows you're probably dangerous. I mean, who knows what kind of violence you're capable of after what you've been through?" The accusation hung in the air like poison. This was Madison's endgame, painting Zara as unstable and potentially violent, forcing the administration to remove her as a threat. For a moment, the hallway was silent except for the soft whisper of recording phones. Then Zara smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. It was the smile of someone who had just realized their enemy had made a fatal tactical error. "You're absolutely right, Madison," Zara said, her voice carrying clearly through the sudden quiet. "I am damaged goods. I have seen things that would give you nightmares for months. I have survived situations that would break you in minutes." Madison's confident expression began to waver as she realized this wasn't going according to script. "I have killed enemy soldiers with my bare hands when my weapons failed. I have crawled through minefields under artillery bombardment. I have held the hands of dying friends while plasma fire lit up the sky around us." Zara took a step forward, and Madison automatically stepped back. "I have faced alien warriors who were bred for combat from birth, who knew no fear and showed no mercy. I have stared down war machines the size of buildings while carrying nothing but a rifle and determination." Another step forward, another step back from Madison. "So you want to know what I'm capable of? I'm capable of surviving anything this universe throws at me. I'm capable of adapting to any environment, overcoming any obstacle, defeating any enemy." Zara's voice remained calm, conversational, which somehow made her words more chilling. "And you want to know what else I'm capable of?" She paused, letting the question hang in the air. "I'm capable of showing mercy to those who don't deserve it. I'm capable of choosing restraint when violence would be easier. I'm capable of being better than my worst experiences." The hallway was dead silent now. Even the phones had stopped recording as students found themselves transfixed by the quiet intensity radiating from this small, scarred girl. "But mostly," Zara continued, "I'm capable of recognizing weakness when I see it. And Madison Pierce, you are the weakest person I have encountered on 2 worlds." Madison's face had gone white. Her carefully constructed facade was crumbling as she realized she had severely miscalculated her opponent. "You prey on children who can't fight back because you're terrified of anyone who might challenge you. You hide behind your father's position because you have no real power of your own. You create an army of followers through fear because no one actually likes or respects you." Zara took one final step forward, now close enough to speak in almost a whisper that somehow carried through the entire hallway. "I've faced real monsters, Madison. Compared to them, you're just a scared little girl playing dress-up in her mother's clothes." With that, Zara shouldered her backpack and walked away, moving through Madison's paralyzed group as if they weren't there. The crowd parted before her, students stepping aside with expressions of awe and newfound respect. Behind her, Madison Pierce stood frozen in the middle of the hallway, her authority shattered and her weakness exposed for everyone to see. The war at Westfield High had just taken a dramatic turn. The video went viral within hours. Jake showed Zara the footage during lunch Monday morning, his tablet displaying her confrontation with Madison from multiple angles. Students had uploaded their recordings to social media with captions like, "Space Girl destroys Queen Bee" and "War veteran owns high school bully." 14 million views and counting, Jake reported. The comments are interesting. Zara scanned through them while eating her sandwich. Most were supportive, praising her for standing up to a bully. Others criticized Madison for picking on a war refugee. A few questioned whether someone with Zara's background should be in a regular high school. "The administration is having an emergency meeting this morning," Jake continued. "Madison's parents are demanding you be expelled for threatening their daughter." "I didn't threaten her." "No, you did something worse. You told the truth about her." Jake closed the tablet. "Question is, what happens next?" Zara had been wondering the same thing. In the colonies, after a battle like Friday's confrontation, enemies either retreated permanently or escalated to total war. Madison Pierce didn't seem like someone who retreated. Her answer came during third period when the PA system crackled to life. "Zara Chen, please report to the principal's office immediately." The hallways buzzed with whispers as she walked through them. Some students nodded respectfully, others stared with curiosity or fear. A few of Madison's remaining allies glared with open hostility. Principal Davidson's office contained the usual suspects, the principal himself looking tired and overwhelmed. Mr. Pierce, Madison's father, red-faced and angry. Mrs. Pierce, perfectly groomed and coldly furious, and Madison herself playing the victim with expertly crafted tears. "Miss Chen," Principal Davidson began, "we need to discuss Friday's incident." "What would you like to know?" Zara asked calmly, taking the empty chair across from his desk. "You threatened my daughter?" Mr. Pierce interrupted, his voice booming through the small office. "You used your military background to intimidate and frighten an innocent student." "I did not threaten anyone," Zara replied. "I responded to accusations that I was dangerous by explaining my actual experiences and capabilities." "You told her she was weak," Mrs. Pierce added with icy precision. "You humiliated her in front of the entire school." "I stated my observation based on her behavior toward other students." "This is exactly what I was afraid of," Mr. Pierce continued, "putting traumatized war veterans in with normal children. It's a recipe for disaster. Principal Davidson held up a hand. Let's all take a breath here. Miss Chen, while I understand you felt provoked, your response was intense. Some might interpret it as threatening. Some might, Zara agreed, but I think we should review the full context of Friday's events. She pulled out her tablet and placed it on the principal's desk. With a few taps, she brought up a video compilation she had prepared over the weekend. This is surveillance footage from the past 3 weeks, she explained as the screen showed Madison's friends vandalizing Zara's locker. And this is social media evidence of coordinated harassment. Photos of Madison's posts appeared, along with screenshots of group chats planning humiliation tactics. This shows the pattern of escalating bullying that led to Friday's confrontation, Zara continued as more evidence scrolled past. Including verbal harassment about my parents' deaths, deliberate social isolation, and attempts at physical intimidation. The room grew quiet as the evidence mounted. Madison's tears dried up as she realized her carefully constructed narrative was falling apart. Furthermore, Zara said, switching to a new file. This is the same pattern Miss Pierce has used against 5 previous students over the past 3 years. All transferred to other schools after sustained campaigns of harassment. How did you, Mr. Pierce began, then stopped himself. Academic records are not classified information, Zara replied. The pattern is clear to anyone who looks. Principal Davidson reviewed the compiled evidence with growing concern. Madison, is this accurate? She's twisting everything, Madison stammered. I was just trying to help her fit in. By calling her psycho and making jokes about her parents' deaths? Jake Morrison's voice came from the doorway. Mr. Morrison, you weren't asked to... Principal Davidson began. Actually, I was. Jake held up an official-looking document. My uncle served as Miss Chen's guardian during evacuation and requested I monitor her adjustment process. That includes documenting any harassment or discrimination. He handed the document to the principal, who read it with increasing dismay. Captain Morrison's military credentials and official status made his request legally binding. The footage Miss Chen showed represents only documented incidents, Jake continued. There's been a systematic campaign of psychological warfare designed to force her to transfer schools. The same pattern used against previous victims. This is ridiculous, Mr. Pierce sputtered. You can't seriously be suggesting my daughter is some kind of criminal. I'm suggesting she's a bully who has been protected by administrative indifference and parental influence, Jake replied calmly. And that protection ends today. Principal Davidson looked overwhelmed by the evidence before him. The Pierce family's donations had kept Madison's behavior under wraps, but this was too public, too documented to ignore. Miss Pierce, he said finally, you're suspended pending a full investigation into these allegations. Mr. and Mrs. Pierce, we'll need to schedule a meeting to discuss Madison's future at this school. You can't do this, Mrs. Pierce snapped. We know people on the school board. And those people will see this evidence, Principal Davidson replied with more backbone than anyone expected, along with the viral video of Friday's confrontation. As the Pierce family left the office in defeat, Madison shot Zara a look of pure hatred. But beneath the anger, Zara saw something else, fear. The kind of fear that came from realizing you had picked a fight with someone far more dangerous than anticipated. Miss Chen, Principal Davidson said after they were gone, while your evidence is compelling, I'm concerned about the intensity of your response Friday. Would you prefer I had responded with violence? Zara asked. Because that was my training. I chose words instead. The principal considered this. Point taken. But moving forward, please come to administration if you experience harassment. We'll handle it properly. Will you? Zara asked pointedly. Because the evidence suggests this behavior has been ignored for years. Principal Davidson had no good answer for that. Over the following days, the social dynamics at Westfield High shifted dramatically. Madison's suspension became indefinite as the investigation expanded, revealing a network of harassment that extended far beyond what anyone had suspected. Students who had been her victims began speaking up, sharing stories they had kept hidden for years. David Kim admitted to having considered suicide during his freshman year. Sarah Martinez revealed that Madison's campaign had caused her to develop an eating disorder. Marcus Thompson showed documentation of how Madison had used social media to destroy his reputation at his previous school. The administration, faced with potential lawsuits and media attention, took decisive action. Madison was expelled, her closest followers suspended, and new anti-bullying policies implemented with real enforcement mechanisms. But Zara's biggest challenge wasn't dealing with Madison's downfall. It was learning to navigate her newfound status as a hero to her fellow outcasts. "You want to go to the spring dance with me?" David Kim asked nervously during their physics lab one afternoon. Zara looked up from their momentum calculations, surprised. David had grown more confident over recent weeks, speaking up in class and making friends among other academic students. "As a social experiment?" she asked. "As friends," David clarified. "I mean, I know you're not interested in dating or anything, but everyone should go to at least one dance, right? And we could analyze the social hierarchies firsthand." Zara considered this. The spring dance would be an excellent opportunity to observe how the school's power structures had reorganized post-Madison. "Okay," she agreed. "But I don't own appropriate attire for formal social events." "Mrs. Henderson will help with that," Jake interjected, joining their conversation. "She's been dying to take you dress shopping." The shopping expedition proved to be an education in Earth civilian culture. Mrs. Henderson was ecstatic at the opportunity to engage in traditional female bonding activities, while Zara approached the process like a military operation requiring appropriate camouflage. They settled on a simple black dress that allowed freedom of movement while meeting formal requirements. Zara refused high heels in favor of dress flats that wouldn't impair her mobility, much to the salesperson's dismay. "You look beautiful," Mrs. Henderson said as they prepared to leave the store. Zara examined her reflection in the mirror. The dress was elegant but practical, the black fabric masking her scars while the cut accommodated her lean muscle structure. She looked like what she was, a warrior adapting to peaceful circumstances. The night of the dance, David arrived at the Henderson house with a corsage and visible nervousness. He had traded his usual worn clothes for a rented tuxedo that transformed him from invisible outcast to distinguished young man. "You clean up well," Zara observed. "So do you," David replied, then blushed at his boldness. Westfield High's gymnasium had been transformed into a fantasy ballroom with lights and decorations that created an almost magical atmosphere. Students who usually looked awkward in hallways moved with surprising grace on the dance floor. Zara and David found a table near the wall where they could observe without being observed. The social hierarchies had indeed reorganized without Madison's dominating presence. Former outcasts had formed new alliances, academic students mingled freely with athletes, and the overall atmosphere seemed more relaxed and inclusive. "Look at that." David pointed toward the dance floor, where Sarah Martinez was laughing with a group of friends she never could have approached when Madison ruled the school. "And there," Zara added, nodding toward a corner where Marcus Thompson was engaged in animated conversation with several students from the drama club. The healing process was visible everywhere they looked. "May I have this dance?" Jake Morrison appeared at their table, offering his hand to Zara with exaggerated formality. Zara hesitated. Dancing was not a skill covered in military training. "I don't know how," she admitted. "Neither do most people here," Jake assured her. "We're all just moving to the music and hoping for the best." The dance floor was indeed chaotic, with students interpreting the music in wildly different ways. Zara found that combat reflexes translated surprisingly well to following rhythmic patterns. "You're a natural," Jake observed as they moved together. "Muscle memory and pattern recognition," Zara explained. "Same skills, different application." As the song ended, the DJ made an announcement that surprised everyone. "We have a special request tonight from someone who wanted to thank a fellow student for showing all of us what real courage looks like." The opening notes of a song Zara didn't recognize filled the gymnasium, but the lyrics made students turn toward her with knowing smiles. "This one's for you," Jake said softly. "From all of us." Looking around the transformed space, Zara saw faces that had been marked by fear and isolation when she first arrived. Now they showed confidence, hope, and genuine happiness. The toxic culture Madison had created was being replaced by something healthier. David joined them on the dance floor, followed by Sarah, Marcus, and dozens of other students who had found their voices after Zara's confrontation had broken the silence. "You know what the best part is?" David said as they moved together in the crowd of dancers. "What's that?" "Madison Pierce transferred to a private academy across town. Rumor is she's having trouble adjusting to a school where her father has no influence and her reputation preceded her." Zara smiled at that. "Karma is universal, apparently." "More than that," Jake added. "You didn't just beat a bully. You taught all of us how to fight back, how to stand up for ourselves and each other." As the evening progressed, Zara found herself genuinely enjoying the experience, not because of the dancing or decorations, but because she had accomplished something important here. She had taken the skills learned in humanity's darkest hours and used them to create light in a smaller, safer world. During the last song, as couples swayed together under the soft lights, Principal Davidson approached their group. "Miss Chen," he said quietly, "I wanted to thank you personally. The changes you've inspired here go far beyond dealing with one problematic student." "How so?" "Applications to Westfield have increased by 30% since word spread about our new anti-bullying stance. Parents want to send their children to a school that actually protects its students." He paused. "And we've had inquiries from other refugee students who heard about your successful integration." Zara considered this. "Are you asking me to be a mentor?" "I'm suggesting you've found your purpose here. You came from a war, but you brought peace." As they left the dance that night, walking through the warm spring air toward Jake's hoverbike, Zara reflected on the principal's words. She had survived alien invasions, watched worlds burn, and lost everything she had ever known. But in this small suburban school, facing an enemy who used words instead of weapons, she had won something more valuable than any military victory. She had won the chance to build something better than what she had lost. "So what's next?" David asked as they reached the parking lot. "College applications? Career planning? Normal teenage stuff?" Zara looked up at the stars, visible despite the city lights. Somewhere out there, the war continued. Other colonies fought for survival while Earth remained blissfully unaware of the broader conflict. "I think," she said slowly, "I'm going to study education and psychology, learn how to help other survivors adapt to peace." "And when the war reaches Earth?" Jake asked quietly. His uncle had kept him informed about the broader galactic situation. "Then I'll be ready," Zara replied simply. "And so will everyone I've trained." The Honda girl who had arrived at Westfield High as a damaged refugee had become something more: a guardian, a teacher, a bridge between the brutality of war and the possibility of peace. She had faced the worst humanity had to offer and emerged stronger. Now she would help others do the same, one school at a time, one student at a time, one bully at a time. Because that's what humans do. They survive, they adapt, they overcome, and sometimes they even thrive.